Hi, Kelly. Good morning.
Morning. And so when we do the thing, when we do YouTube, we can go live in YouTube too.
Yes, but we need to sync that beforehand.
All right, yeah, let's work on doing those things. So
Okay. Okay.
we
You're recording.
I'm gonna record. I'm gonna record it. You like it better through Zoom, the recording, right? Instead of Fathom?
Yes. But I think we
Yeah.
should pause for now till we start.
Oh,
It's gonna take in everything from now.
sorry.
Okay.
All right, just don't say anything. Wait, let me just make you host. Wait, why can't I make you co-host? All right, I'll make you
Yes,
host.
please.
No, I don't know. It just says host. So I made you the host. So you could stop it. We can edit this out.
Okay.
Okay, so great. This guy didn't get me what I need. Okay, I so the thing when I go over page like slide 8, did you pause the recording?
No, I didn't. I haven't touched anything.
Yeah, you should pause it. You said you wanted to pause it.
Okay. Should I admit your note taker?
Was to stop guessing and start knowing your numbers, right? So most entrepreneurs avoid looking at their numbers. It could be for a multitude of reasons, but I know this from my experience as an accountant and dealing with them on a day-to-day, that it's usually a challenge when they don't know where they're at and kind of how they're trying to get there. So let's do this again. And one, five, exit full. Okay, you guys can still see me? All right. So I wanted to talk about number one, a little bit about this group and what it means to me and why I'm passionate about it. I've been in business for 17 years, working very closely with entrepreneurs and founders, and probably the most intimate setting, which is the financial space of business. So I get to hear all of the stories, when things are challenging, when things are going great, how do I know what's next? How do I know, when I can get help, when it's time to hire someone? So, and they'll also come to if there have been challenges, maybe they're behind on their taxes or they're not clear on their information. So I wanted to create Entrepreneurs Anonymous as a safe space where we can all come together and, through like minds, we can strategize and help each other succeed and overcome. I feel like as founders, we often have to show up in rooms clean and polished and perfect. Well, this is a place where we can really bring our stuff and work it through. So the idea is you're anonymous. So we don't need your name, we don't need your company name, we don't need you to unmute, or we don't need you to put your camera on. I'm trying to figure out how to work the settings to get everyone's camera off. But you don't need to register. We do ask though that you join the school community. That way you could just get access to the live recordings and other information that we'll share. We want to keep this space private. So, whatever's talked about here, we want to leave it here. The idea is to get you guys to be prepared, So I have a gift that I'm going to give you at the end of the call to help you analyze your numbers if you're not looking at them already. And then again, we're not here to sell. We're not here to pitch. We're not here to be perfect. We're here to kind of, get what we need. All right, so I, oh, excuse me. I wanted to share a little bit about, what I've seen in business is typically the biggest area is the entertainment space, meals, a lot of high spending and travel there. And sometimes we don't realize it, right? When we're in this age of swipe, 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 you don't realize that it's all adding up. And, maybe you got a big payment in from a client, a large retainer, and by the time you take care of all the things, you realize how much you've actually spent. So the idea is to really bring awareness to your numbers and to the information so that you are empowered to know what your next step is. This is a little bit of my story. Like I said, I've been in business 17 years and it hasn't always been beautiful. But one thing that I've been grateful for is that I've been able to watch my clients and their journeys. So we do all go through trials and tribulations, but we believe that we come out on the other side. So not sure who's in the room or what anyone may be going through, but just take that as a little bit of encouragement. All right, so right into it. And then I'll also let you know that we're going to have this little brief discussion. If anyone wants to unmute, it's a small group. Feel free to unmute and jump in or raise your hand, anything like that. But we are going to also open it up to a hot seat where we'll discuss a topic that may be burning for any of you guys. So you guys can jump in there too. So what I see really often is that owners are trying to balance so many things, right? And especially in this world where we're at of social media and there's everyone telling you what you're doing wrong and where your numbers need to be. And, I'm making 800,000 a month selling this, our minds can get distorted on what we should be really focusing on. So some of the 5 main things you need to know is number 1, your profit margin. When you hear founders talk, they'll often say like, oh, I'm doing, 2 million in revenue. I'm doing 750,000 in revenue. They'll always talk about their revenue numbers, but what matters, of course, is the bottom line. So that also compiled with your revenue, right? So your revenue and all of your expenses, that's going to give you your bottom line. You need to know that. Obviously, if you're doing bookkeeping and you have someone that's managing that, you should be looking at a profit and loss. But if you're not, you really don't want to generalize those numbers because sometimes we could just say like, oh, I know the average of what this is. No, we should be doing the numbers and pulling everything through so that, you have like your real numbers. The next is the owner's pay, right? So that's one area where I notice a lot of owners will typically not pay themselves and not just necessarily, paying themselves like through actual payroll, like W-2. I mean, coming up with an amount that they should pay to themselves on a monthly basis. Usually it goes by kind of whatever's left, right? You've taken a big payment after you handle all your obligations. It's like, okay, money for me. Not necessarily. You should get a structure to how you're paying yourself. The first way that I kind of always guide clients into moving in that direction is number 1, determine what it takes for you to maintain your home, right? Like, what does it take for you to maintain your house? How much do you need to be making, right? So coming up with a monthly number for that, and then obviously, dividing it by 4, you can put it into more of like a weekly distribution. So it's not also such a large amount that needs to come out of the company for cash flow. But, so example, I'm just going to use round numbers. Your home rent is $3,000, the car is 1,000 and miscellaneous other things, another 2,000. So what is that? Is that 5 or 6 something? Someone's counting. So now you know that you need to, let's say 4,000 a month or what your overhead expenses are for yourself personally. So what you should be doing is making a weekly transfer to yourself from your business account for $1,000, and that can serve as your pay. Not to get too detailed, depending on ownership breakdown and things like that. Number 3, the top 3 things you should know are the top 3 expenses that you have. What is it costing to run your business? Hold on, I see the chat is going. There we go. What are the main expenses that you have? What are the top things that are, draining the bank as far as the business is concerned? And then number 4, you should have a cash reserve. Ideally, you should have 3 months of operating expenses as a buffer. These are, things that are just really important as you're starting to kind of build your fund for your business. If you want to do any marketing, any extra add-ons, purchasing software, things like that, you want to have these cushions there, these buffers. So number 5 is also the revenue. So we never want to forget that. So those are those big numbers at the top. Like, okay, we're doing 700,000. We're doing, 2 million in annual revenue. So you should know these numbers from the top of your head. All right, so I have, like I said, a couple of little goodies. I will give everyone the link to at the end of this, but I have some quizzes that you can take that will help you to kind of understand where you are as far as where you're at in your journey, what areas you should be focusing on more when it comes to your finances and as you run your business. Okay, so the number one thing was what I talked to you guys about before is like paying yourself on a schedule, right? And then you definitely want to have your accounts separate. So a lot of times people will think, oh, even though I made a personal transaction out of my business account, it's okay because I'm not taking it as a write-off or, I allocated that. It's important to have the accounts separate because it really is the reason why you created your business in the first place. An LLC is to have protection of, yourself from the business. But if you are making personal transactions in your business account, even though you're not putting it as an expense and a write-off, it now breaks the corporate veil. And once the corporate veil is broken, now that's when, if someone were coming to sue you or something like that, God forbid, it could turn out in a potentially ugly manner. So business checking, business savings. I know that there's tons of literature out there that tells you need different accounts for different things. But unless you really have the headspace to monitor all that, a simple business checking and business saving is fine. Paying yourself on a schedule is needed. And then the tax part. This is the topic that I like the most because I see usually that there's a lot left on the table when it comes to this, right? Sometimes folks will assume that, they need to file as an S corp because, that's what the gurus online are telling us. Oh, you need to open an S corp, so you save on the self-employment tax and all those things. There's different tax brackets and different things are needed. So number one, if you have a great year and it's the end of the year and it's time to file taxes and your tax preparer says, okay, we need to do some tax planning, we can always go back and do an S corp election. You don't want to be move too quick to setting up an S corp, because if you aren't able to pay your salary, you're not being compliant with what the S corp is for. So ideally, if you're making over 250,000, that's when you want to kind of start looking to structure it as an S corp from an LLC. But if you have an LLC and you also may have a W-2, right? If your business is still kind of a side hustle, you are kind of in one of the more attractive tax scenarios, because you get the W-2 that you paid your tax into, and then you also can take the deductions that you have for your business. So right here, and again, this will all be information that I share. I wanted to show you guys just some of the targets by industry and some of the realistic targets. I think, again, this is something that has been like heavy on me and weighing on me as far as like, there's just like a lot of information out there these days. And we should have realistic goals and realistic information. Like, to do above and beyond is great. But if you own a consulting business and you're a one-man shop, maybe two-man shop, you should be looking at a net, like, to you after all your expenses, of about 80 to 150. So professional services, same thing, 75 to 140. So when these are kind of the benchmarks for these industries. So I wanted to share this as well, just because, everyone online these days are talking about how they make, 800,000 a month and 600 grand a week. And, so these are just some of the more realistic numbers that I wanted to share that are real benchmarks for the industries, and also same with creative agencies. But as you grow and you scale your business, of course, these numbers, they differ and change. So what I would love to give you guys are just some tips that I always share whenever I'm in front of a bunch of founders, are, like good money habits. So number one, you would be surprised at how often we see that folks are like overpaying for subscriptions. They think they canceled things they don't use, things that are on auto renewal that they're not even sure of. Sometimes people have 2 Netflix accounts and don't even know it. So that's kind of like an audit of really taking through and looking at your expenses and drawing down, drawing down on some of the areas where you can cut corners. Next is knowing your break even, right? So you want to keep in your mind the way I talked about you as a person, right? So what do you need to bring in personally? And then hopefully the business can sustain that. And then now you're looking to, like more of your margins as far as the business is concerned. So you need to know your break even. Like, hey, I need to do at least 15 grand a month just so the lights are on and we're eating, so that part. And then a monthly money date. This is my favorite. I like to do this weekly, whatever works for you. I call it Money Mondays, but you really want to take time at least once a week to diligently look at your funds. One of the things that I'm going to share with you guys in the school community is a simulator where you can put your information into it and it'll kind of tally you all up so you know what your activity has been for a time frame. And then this rule, the 50-30-20 rule, right? 50% should cover the operating expense. 30 should cover the owner's pay, and then 20 is the team. Those are some ideal parameters that you want to keep as you're thinking about, growing your team, next steps, what should what should I be working on? When is it time to do an advertising budget? Can I afford a VA or a new hire? Price for profit. So also understanding that, especially if you're a service based business, products sometimes are harder. And then review. Any change always takes awareness. So I love that saying. Sometimes we might feel overwhelmed by our numbers, not fully get them. Maybe we feel guilty, we've made mistakes, we've messed up some money. I think we've all been there, or maybe we got a lump sum and we had a plan in our head how it was going to go, but by the time everything was all done, maybe we're not where we want to be. So reviewing your numbers and just staying vigilant to it, allocating a day a week, at minimal once a month to really look at everything. And the audit is super important. So these are good money habits. I think everyone could start this week. Okay, so this is this is what I'll be sharing with you guys. And so the idea is you can go log into your bank and download your transactions. Either you can upload the monthly statement or you can download the transactions for a time frame. You can do it on your bank's website, download it into Excel and upload it right into here. It's 100% private. The data never leaves this space, but it's going to give you tons of information. It's going to help you to summarize what your spending is and based on your industry, how things look. So we'll be displaying that a little later in the school community. So I hope you guys stay on to watch it. It's really a great tool. I mean, if you don't have a bookkeeper in your business, it's excellent to be able to look at your numbers. It's essential. And then this is what I mentioned about industries, right? Your target net margins and then your owner's salary. I'll also share this so that you guys have the information as well. All right, great. So I would love to, like I said, take the time to open up the hot seat. The idea, like I said, with this community, we'll meet every other Wednesday. And we'll have different experts on, which will highlight different topics. The next person that we'll have on our next meeting will talk to us about networking, which I think is essential. But having this space for the hot seat is important because sometimes as members, as founders, we might be having a challenge and we just don't have someplace else where we can bounce ideas off of, get strategies. And sometimes the things that you're going through, other folks have gone through as well. So the idea is if you have something that's kind of on your mind right now, we're all here anonymously, except for me. Feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type in the chat if you want, but I'm here and we can kind of walk through it. Any potential challenges or anything that you'd like to discuss. I know usually, the money topic brings a lot because sometimes folks aren't, totally clear on what they need and what they're looking for and their vision and where they're going with their business. So, yes, would anyone sorry about that.
Yeah,
Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'll go, no problem. I think, hello. Thank you so much for doing this. I think one of the things that I'm experiencing myself as an owner is as I'm growing in delegation is key to growth, but finding help seems to be a challenge. The training time, it's not even the cost of paying someone, is the time that it takes to retain help so you can keep growing. And I find that to be very challenging right now. The training part and I don't know. I don't know. It's just been very challenging for me.
I think a lot has happened in the landscape of business and team and support, especially since, COVID. I think that things are now in virtual and everyone's kind of gotten used to this work from home space. So I'm not sure of the position that you're trying to hire for, if it's like an in-office or if it's a work from home. Would you be able to share? Is it like an in-person type or is it a virtual position you need support with?
I mean, it's technically virtual. It's just my paperwork. It's nothing, but I
Yeah.
guess I'm wondering if it should be in office.
So So that's so good because you see there's this new space where like these VAs and I've noticed it a lot where you have a whole bunch of people, they're like, "Oh, I can do this and I can do this and I can do that for you virtually." So I think the first thing is doing some interviews and uh I would recommend when you're going virtual that you almost want to have a hub, like a barrier in between. So you're not dealing one to one with the employee, especially if it's your first time going in a virtual route. Because as you go, you'll start to build up your contacts and things like that. So I would always go to maybe like a virtual agency assistant and start there. And you tell them basically what you're looking for, a job description. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. But then usually they'll put a few candidates in front of you. And I think you could find really good results like that. So what things have you already done that like how have you found, have you hired someone and then they haven't worked for you, or have you not found anyone to bring on yet?
So I went to companies before.
Okay.
So company, I actually hired three people from that company. I feel like they telling me they know how to do things and they have experience, they have resumes. And
Mhm.
as things goes on, 2, 3 months later, I'm still repeating myself. They still don't know what I'm referring to. They said they've done it before.
Mhm.
But apparently I'm finding out after spending time and money that
Yeah.
they're not familiar with whatever I'm trying to get done. And they're not retaining. Okay, I don't mind training, but 3 months later, I shouldn't have to keep saying the same thing.
Right.
And it just gets
Right.
frustrating.
Oh my gosh, this is so loaded. So first off, what I would say with the training is 100%. So usually, like, especially because we're in a Zoom now, I have my note taker. It follows me everywhere. I didn't bring it in here. But what I would recommend is when you're training, always have a note taker or be recording it. I like the note takers better than just the Zoom recording. So when you do these AI note takers, now you have literally the transcript of the call, and you could take that and put it in Claude or GPT and now ask them to write up a procedure. And then you have your videos. So I would say it's not going to be an easy role, but the training part, I would never train anyone again. And this is just me without some kind of AI companion or it being documented or recorded. Because if you leave, now I got to go and start back with Sarah at the exact spot where I left off with you. So that's the first thing that I would do with the training. And now this is kind of like your intellectual properties, right? These are the procedures of how we do things at my company. So that's number one about the training. Number two, I would think that especially if there's an in-between, like an agency like you're talking about, that number one, they should give some kind of guarantees. And then I think if you need to replace again within that agency, they should take responsibility for the training. But I think if you have, like I said, if you have your trainings documented, it might not be so bad to start over. But For instance, I have a girl starting in 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks, and I told her, your first week, you're going to be doing nothing but watching videos of me talk and me explain things. Um, because we don't want to have to keep repeating it. You want to do it in a way so it's scalable so that, yeah, if this person doesn't work out, the next one, you can easily pick up. But then too, I don't know where you're offshoring to. And I mean, I don't know how politically correct it is, but when you're in different countries, you're dealing with different cultures, different feeling, like different flows of being. And
Interpretations too of words, what things mean. It's been very crazy with this
what
one.
country is it? Philippines? Yeah.
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 So
I've
I don't,
noticed with them, and no offense to anyone, I've noticed that with them, they are very wanting to please, right? So they're going to yes you to death. They're going to say, yeah, we could do it. Yeah, we could do it. We could do it. And then they can't do it. And they kind of try to figure out how to work around it instead of coming and saying, hey, this is the challenge. Or even we might want to do it, but we don't have all the pieces or the information to do it. So you might need someone, especially if it's going to be like your first hire, you're going to need someone in that first position that's bold and confident to speak up and say, usually, and this is also what I've noticed in this virtual world, when things aren't getting done, there's a reason why. Like there's a break in the system. Like maybe they don't know how to do it. Maybe they don't have the information. Maybe they're afraid to ask. So you're going to need somebody to be like you're almost like your number two in that space. Does that make sense?
so you think I need like a in person, like an assistant.
Not necessarily. I just think that once you get that first strong virtual person, that it'll be easy to build under them. Because then you have like even your team is going to notice like, okay, we can go to this person because they don't want to bother the boss. There's this mindset of like, oh, if I'm bothering my boss, it means I don't know how to do my job and I'm going to get fired. And I deal with this in my company too. And sometimes it's like, no, we need to collaborate so that you understand like what really needs to be done. So I
Yeah,
think that,
so I think I'm gonna take your advice. So the Note Taker AI is an AI app or something?
yeah, so there's all different kinds. I use the Fathom note taker, right? And I'll actually yeah, it's called Fathom AI. And what that does is it joins every Zoom meeting, and you can kick it out too, but it records it. And the reason why I like it, yeah, Fathom note takers. The reason why I like it is because it has a section where you can go and ask Fathom, right? So I can literally now go back and say, hey, what country did they say, that they are outsourcing to? It's going to read the whole meeting and say, it says she's outsourcing to the Philippines. So it's that cool. And so from there, you can build your intellectual property, your procedures.
Yeah, because so that company I hired three people, one to do my website, one to manage my social media, and another one to manage to help me with my paperwork and everything. I mean, I ended up letting two of them go last month, and then I kept one, and then I'm redoing my website again for another $3,000. The same website that I paid
Oh no.
whatever I pay them per month to do. So I just wish they would have told me because I think they're using me as a guinea pig. Like I
Yeah.
think they should be honest and say, okay, we never done it, but we can try. We're willing to learn. Everybody's always saying, yeah, we've done this. Yes, we work with your people like you before and your business type and all that. But as time goes on, they don't know. And it's just so frustrating.
I think that's what we're going to be dealing with in this new era of business and world, right? Because these new positions, these people are now having opportunities that they've like never had before to generate. So there's almost like an eager and an excitement of, yeah, I can do it. but we're gonna have to find a way to test it and see if it's true. And the toughest part is this process of elimination.
Yeah.
Like
Yes, it cost me first, right?
it's so tough. And I wouldn't recommend that either, balling it all into one place. I would always like an investment portfolio, right? You want to diversify. So maybe
Mhm.
you can so usually the Philippines are technically like ideal for customer service things.
Mhm.
And the reason being is because like the accent, all right, is a little more tolerable. While maybe you might outsource to India for more technical things and you need like software, accounting. Pakistan is big there too. So I mean, of course, and there's all over, but that's kind of like the standard of how it's going. But I would recommend that you get with some different agencies, and as long as you have your training
Yeah.
recorded, put them up the first couple of days, just leave them sitting watching videos and ask them like, now I want you to do this. I heard someone say it really good. It's slow to hire but quick to fire. So when you know when someone's not working out, because it's just like, this is going nowhere. They're asking the questions like they should have already known this. If they're showing up and not taking notes, that's like my biggest pet peeve. Like, how are you not taking notes? So, yeah, does that help answer? I think that you might want to yeah, try number one, finding another agency. I would definitely do it slow churn too. Like I wouldn't give them three different projects.
Yeah. And then I'll take some recommendation too if you have any.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I mean, but don't get me started. I like the continent of Africa. That's where I want to outsource my stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I don't care
feel.
where they from. I just need things done and I can't. it's a little
Yeah.
over, for
No,
me to do it myself.
and I've noticed too, especially if like it's a strong personality, they may not be as willing to, that I just noticed that from the Philippines. It's like they'll say, yeah, 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 but then, it's a challenge to execute it. So I've found, some bold Nigerians that'll say, no, we got to do this. And you're like, oh, okay, so we got to figure it out. But that's what's been working for me. It's like a stronger, personality.
Oh boy.
But that's what we need sometimes. Well, I
Okay.
don't know, as me as a founder, that's what I need sometimes. So.
Okay, yeah, I'll take some recommendations, whatever you can recommend. I
Okay,
don't care
well,
where
I'll
they
put them
from, but
in the school channel. Yeah, for sure. We'll make sure that you get the link to the school channel at them. But no, these are things that founders are dealing with because it takes so much for us to train somebody. You know, it's a lot bringing on a team member and wasting your time, and then they leave. It's so discouraging, or
yeah,
it
and
doesn't work out.
it's frustrating because I ran out of patience. So
Yeah.
yeah, any recommendation because the one that I have now has to go by next week. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for the admin task or
yeah,
for the
it's
website building,
the
because that's
website I
another
went to.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing, no website should cost 3 grand in this day and age. These sites are, and not to say, like a free site that took AI 5 seconds to make is not going to be comparable to a $3,000 site, but there's a nice place in the middle, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, my website is a little more complicated because I get it. Because I try, yeah, it takes a little bit more because there's other component that has to be linked into it. So I understand that it does take time.
So
So
you need like a developer.
yeah, I found one.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And
I
a
could-
lot of people are going to say, yes, we can do it because they just want to get the business. It's a shame.
Yeah, yeah, but it's okay. You live and you learn. Um, that's why recommendations are always better instead of trying to figure it out on your own. And that's why
Yeah.
you're in a community. So hence what you're doing is good because we can just recommend things to each other instead of having to learn on our
Yeah,
own.
trusted professionals. I think that's so important to have a group of trusted professionals, especially now with everything just so fly by night, you know?
Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely. Because, it would be better to have a recommendation from someone in this room versus me trying to, like I've been doing on my own because I don't know. So, well, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything that maybe they're going through in their business? Any topic. It doesn't have to just be on staffing or money, any challenges. Or you could type in the chat if you can't talk. Let's see. No, I yeah, my idea is okay, right now my biggest struggle. And we're coming in live from the chat, boys and girls. The biggest struggle is drum roll. Um, what would be the best to start an LLC or an S corp for taxes? So that is such a hot topic, right? Because ideally, the thought behind the S corp is to, and then number one, if you want to keep writing, I'll answer. The idea behind the S corp is that it's going to save you that 20% of unemployment, of self-employment tax. But you have to draw an actual payroll. So the LLC, the single member LLC, gives you the freedom, right, to make your transfers in and out because it's a pass-through entity. Whatever the company net in profit, whether you take it out or not, goes onto your personal tax return and you're taxed on that. That's how the LLC works. The S corp is that the company now has their profit and loss, but they have a big deduction for payroll, and that payroll is to you. So usually a S corp is set up when we know that that profit is going to be somewhere around that 250,000 after expenses. When we know that, because now it makes sense tax wise to set up that structure and then draw down on the payroll to bring your profit down. And that's how you get into a K1. So it's not always super cut and dry, but typically the S corp is the best shelter for tax savings. But you want to understand where the business is at currently, because if it's not netting enough, then it doesn't make sense to put those stipulations, because you have to draw payroll, which means payroll tax filings and things like that. Okay, I hope that answered number 5. Okay, figuring out where my money is going. This year I took a huge loss of 17K and I have no clue where this money went. Now I'm tracking my financials, but I want to avoid this from happening again. My question is, should I go up in price or cut where I'm spending? So I have my philosophy is kind of always just, trying to generate more revenue. That's always the goal, right? Making more money. But the expenses, cutting the expenses, or at least knowing them. So that's why when we were on that slide and we talked about the 5, like this, the things that you really need to know, the 5 things, that's where your top expenses are. So and sometimes you can't cut expenses. Like sometimes you're already, to the bones. So my recommendation is, especially someone who's saying, I don't know where the money went, that's daily focusing on the money, right? And so what that looks like is, if you have a person who's doing your numbers, that's great, because that's going to give you the monthly review. But you're looking at your account daily. The bank information that I'm going to share with you, the statement analyzer, that's going to be good for you. You could even throw it in a week, right? To see just like, what did I do last week? Because a lot of times, like I said before, we're just swiping and we're not realizing. And we're like, oh, that's $79. That's nothing. Well, that's $85. That's something. But it all starts to add up. And then, like you said, at the end, 17 grand is gone and you don't know where it went. So my suggestion is to set up number one, a payment structure for yourself. Because that's typically when you see money leaks, it's because there's no planning and there's no structure. So even if it's just $250 a week or whatever you know that you can transfer to yourself that will take the burden off of, that money pressure, I would say paying yourself and then looking at your numbers and then starting to put money aside. That's the most important thing too. So remember I said having a checking and a savings account. You want to start putting some money aside. Again, even if it's small, we don't have to talk about these big numbers, but this is what's going to help you to kind of build your cushion, because otherwise, if you don't have a structured workflow for when money comes in, that's where you're going to see the leaks. So I would recommend you looking through something called a general ledger, especially if you're using QuickBooks, ask for it, general ledger, and literally look at the year and everything that went out. And you're going to be surprised. And then you should also highlight things that you think that you can potentially, cut back on, get rid of. But that's my suggestion, is just awareness. And with awareness, it brings change, When you start looking at it, you're going to be more mindful of, okay, this is exactly where I'm at right now, not just of what's coming in. So you said, do I recommend a spreadsheet? I'm going to share it in the school community, but it's kind of like a widget that if you wanted to upload the printout from your bank, it can actually read the info and help you to gather it. And then you could throw it in Excel too. So you'll like that. But I would say for budgeting apps, especially if we're talking about like personal, it's called Rocket Money. That's the one that I recommend. But for the business, you definitely want to make sure that you have someone taking care of it. So if you don't have someone that's doing your bookkeeping, that's totally fine. But have your banking be in good practice, right? So all of the money related to the business, all the money coming in and all the money going out, that has to go into one account, one separate, whether it's a business account, personal account, it's just isolated to the business, right? So this way you can always go back and track it. That's why you don't want to, commingle personal stuff, because then it gets confusing and you don't know how much you really spent. And this is, again, if you're not working with a professional, because at the end of the year, like I said, we could just throw your numbers into like an analyzer and get a push out. So I hope that answers your question about a recommendation, but definitely you have to look at more than just logging into your bank account and the available balance, because that will never give you the full picture of where you need to be in your business. I hope that answered. And number one about the 17,000, did I answer your question? You have any other questions about that? I mean, it's always ideal to increase pricing or think about other streams of revenue. Think about other streams of revenue. You answered and go on and take any precautions moving forward. Yeah, a lot of it is just awareness. And also, if you have QuickBooks, you can also log in there and look at what's going on. I mean, if your people are only doing it once a month, but you could still see the transactions, which is the most important part. Yeah, and I don't know if anyone here has any more, money things, but this is really the core of why I wanted to start this community because it's money stuff. Those are the things that we need answers on and often handle and carry on our own. 'Cause people will assume that because we have a business, we're rich and oh, it's a write-off and oh, you can do that and oh, you can do that. But sometimes in entrepreneurship, it can be hard when, sometimes you might need to go for a loan and, maybe the business isn't qualifying. I know here in Miami, there's a bank that's, really doing a lot of lending called Bank United. But sometimes it takes awareness of who's kind of giving out the lines of credits at this time. And yeah. So that was the idea. If anyone else is going through anything, money, embarrassing, confusing, we're all here. Maybe if someone can add anything, they can unmute or share. I don't pay myself, but I want to. Should I set something up or should I base off my numbers? I'm treating my business as a side hustle. Okay. Okay. So that's great, right? If you're treating it as a side hustle, you're in a great position, right? Because now you could do a lot. So what I would recommend is that number one, if there is a deficit between, what the full-time work is or like your unemployment or your main job and your side hustle, if there's a deficit from where you need to be in your main job, I would figure that out, right? And then, if the business needs to pay you that, because we need to make sure that you're good as the founder so that you don't have to worry about money challenges and things like that, and you could pay your bills. Second, I would say the next thing is for you to do it based off of your numbers, right? So that's the sheet that I had up earlier, which I'll share, based on your industries, where your benchmark should be and your numbers, right? Because you don't want to bleed the business, right? And take everything out of it. You want to say, hey, we had a surplus or we had a good month last month. Should I start doing some advertising? Or some marketing, or should I be bringing on, like the other person was talking about, hiring someone? So I think it should be based off of your numbers because your financial needs are met through your employment, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a better situation than when someone is they're relying 100% on their business. So in your case, you actually have like more flexibility and freedom with what you can do because when you start to see that surplus, instead of you needing to take it to feed yourself, you can take it and invest back into the business. Do you know what investing back into your business would look like for you? Like one of the things we should always think of is like, how much money would it take to make some more money? That's actually like a phrase that I'd like. How much money would it take for me to make more money, right? So if I need to run X amount of dollars in some marketing or ads or promos, is this gonna bring back in, more revenue to offset it? So having that kind of clarity always empowers you as a business owner. So I hope that answered. But yeah, I would always say base it off your numbers, especially if it's a side hustle. And then that's where, you can grow and scale it from there. Okay, if there's anyone else, you could feel free to jump in. Otherwise, okay. Otherwise, we'll shut down. So again, I'll have just a quick recap. Thank you all for coming and joining us, joining in with me early on in the vision. But the idea is that this will be an online virtual community, though, of real people, real founders who are bringing their real problems, and hopefully we can give them real solutions. Okay. We're going to meet every other week. we'll have a different topic, different guests, an expert guest. Today was just moi, because we were talking money. Money is my talk. And our next one, we will have an expert networker, right? Especially networking in this virtual world. So that'll be a cool topic. And then again, we're always going to open it for the hot seat. So bring whatever you need. We're here to support you in all capacities. Please join the school community. We'll put the link. Okay, there we go. The school is there. Just join the school community. It's free, but this will help us to keep you up to date. And we'll post the recording from here. And you don't need to register. You do need to register there, but no one will see you. But as far as the Zooms, the next one, we'll just give you this link that you could put on your calendar so that you could join. All right, guys, thank you so much. Appreciate you all. And have a wonderful Wednesday. And see you soon. Thank you. I appreciate your time, really.